Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Astrology Climate Witness tonight. I am reading from the magazine, The Mountain Astrologer, and this article is from 2017, and it's by Tracy Marks, who's very well known for her depth astrology. She is someone who has been able to take the parts of astrology and go deep within. She also has a book on the houses that's very in depth. And the reason I'm taking this article and reading it has to do with how this article, when I read it, it correlates to our situation as far as our living planet and our relationship to it, and what we've done, what we think we can do, what we are limited in doing. So when we think about our situation, it's very difficult to come to terms with the reality that really does lay out how limited we really are. Our belief systems for thousands of years now have led us to believe that we have control completely, pretty much, and that we are above nature. Well, this article will help. I want you to, as I'm reading it, I want you to replace some of the personal references that she makes about herself, and then also some of the natal chart descriptions or discussions, and apply it to, right now we're just going to work on the United States, or man in general, but to some extent both the United States specifically and our species. Okay, I'm going to start reading, and I think you'll grasp what I'm getting at. Okay? Alrighty. Principles of Depth Astrology by Tracy Marks, Part 1. And it's a very long article. I'm probably not going to read the whole thing, but I do want to make these correlations between what she's talking about and what our situation is on this planet. Okay. We are all framed of flaps and patches, and of so shapeless and diverse a texture that every piece and every moment playeth its part. And that quote is by Montaigne. Okay? So what that's getting at when you refer to astrology is the pieces of a natal chart. But when you think about, say, human beings, different cultures, different nationalities, different ethnic groups, and then when you talk about the United States, you're talking about similar things within the United States. Next, do I contradict myself? Very well then. I contradict myself. I am large. I contain multitudes. Many of you have probably heard this. I've heard it before. Walt Whitman. Okay? Think about yourself within your own mind and within your personality. How there's all these different parts that want to express and be something. Well, when you think about a country, it's pretty much the same thing. You know, everybody has their, I don't want to say agenda. Agenda to me sounds negative, but everybody has their need to express what they want to express. And we live in a democracy. Okay, we're supposed to be living in a democracy. And so people try to express what they want, and different people have different perspectives and orientations and value systems. Okay, and they clash. Okay. He who attends to his greater self becomes a great man. He who attends to his smaller self becomes a small man. So it is important to some degree to, wash your dishes and sweep your floor, take care of your clothes, take care of your bills, keep order and organize. But if you're only working on that small little bubble and not paying attention and learning more about the wider world, at least as much as possibly you can. Everybody's situation is different. Some have the ability to do that in depth. Some have some more time that they can give to that. But don't purposely ignore what you need to learn about how the world is expressing and how it works and what's going on, because your mind stays small. Okay. In 1983, I first published Principles of Depth Astrology as an article and then as a chapter in the Astrology of Self-Discovery. When I wrote it, I was 32 years old and believed in nearly unlimited possibilities. What does that sound like? It sounds like the human race in general, and it really sounds like the United States. We had this vision that we could do anything. And most people still have that vision. If you want to survive, do you blow through all your resources thinking, oh, I can get some more tomorrow, right? No, that's not how you survive. As a species, especially since the industrial civilization or industrial revolution started, we have blown through massive amounts of resources. Some of those include water. We have destroyed water like you wouldn't believe. That's one of the most important. Land is next, ecosystems and habitats. And then other people will say too, well, the other kinds of resources we use like oil, gas, and such. But to me, they should have never been developed in the first place. But all right, we'll continue here. But I was also nearly suffering from a rare, often incapacitating, I said that wrong, but I was also suffering from a newly found disease. I still didn't say that right. Oh my God. But I was also newly suffering from a rare, often incapacitating immune system disorder and was convinced that I could cure myself with the help of medicine, holistic health practices, astrology, and psychotherapy. I was wrong. Very little that I did or learned helped physically, and my life became more and more difficult. As a Libra with Sagittarius rising and a ninth house stellium, I had struggled to come to terms all these years with increasing limitations. I have also continued to reevaluate my attitudes towards astrology, both personally and as a psychotherapist. I still find it immensely valuable, but am also more aware of what our astrological understanding can and cannot do. So that also sounds like the human species. What we can and cannot do with our big brains. okay? Our technological prowess, right? What is it we can actually do? Well, so far, we've been able to destroy a lot, our actual living planet. Okay. I now believe in consulting one's felt self, felt sense, body-centered inner guidance first, and only then turning to the planets for help, confirmation, clarification, and perspective. This newly revised chapter reflects these changes in my beliefs over the past 34 years. Okay? All right, that's her little personal introduction. Now, astrology students and practitioners are continually faced with questions about the purpose, validity, and uses of our art. Of what value is the study of astrology? Doesn't knowing the influences of the present and future lead to feeling helpless or acting in accordance with self-fulfilling prophecies? How does astrology account for free will? How can we use astrology to empower ourselves and others rather than feel helpless in the face of circumstances seemingly beyond our control? So, doesn't that sound a little bit like where we're at with the climate situation? We are in a situation where the means that we've been using to help ourselves to make a progress are actually what's causing our autoimmune disorder, so to speak. Okay? We're dying by our own mechanisms that we thought were protecting us, right? From the natural world, etc. So it's kind of like the autoimmune disease in a sense. All of our technocratic inventions only create more disease or more problems, okay? They don't actually fix anything. If they do, it's temporary. And then we have to come up with a way to fix that techno problem, okay? Now, attempting to answer these questions may help us to understand the aims and uses of astrology and to develop a philosophy and approach to interpretation that is constructive and empowering. It's a little dark right here, sorry. So, what I wanted to say was, just as one can look at astrology and say, well, really, what is this tool for? We can look at ourselves as a species, and we can look at our big brains and wonder, what is this tool for? Okay? Well, if you're leaving out the body sense, as she's talking about, which is really the connection to nature, if you're leaving that out, then you're really missing the most important aspect, the fact that human beings are part of nature, not separate from. And it's really hard for people to grasp exactly what that really means, because what we've done over century upon century is do everything we can to think of ourselves as outside of nature. When that really first began, possibly with the beginning of the start of agriculture around 8,000 years ago. If it wasn't then, it was shortly after where we finally decided to settle into city-states and develop, large-scale settlements, etc., where that settlement required us to use all of the resources out and around that settlement, that very large city-state, use that up, and then have to develop a military to go beyond that in order to gain more resources to live, land for growing food, and what have you. So if it wasn't then it was during the Renaissance, or, when we decided to use science. It could have been in any one of those points. It was probably a process that we came across. Whereas slowly, with each movement of progress as a human species, because there were many before, along with us and before us, as Homo sapiens sapiens, we developed more and more ways to separate ourselves so we didn't have to get our hands dirty. So that, okay, yes, so that we could provide for our loved ones, so that we could keep them safe, so that we could keep them healthy. Okay, that is part of it too. By developing weapons and developing agriculture, developing larger, stronger roofs over our head, we were able to provide safety for our loved ones. I mean, who wants to see their children in danger? So that is part of it. But as time went on, we began to get greedy. And those who could use their cleverness, ability to manipulate others, these became the leaders. And those leaders separated themselves more and more from other people that they were leading and thought of themselves as better than and stronger and more capable of leading. And then eventually the people being led thought the same thing and were bamboozled into worshiping those leaders. And we've not got away from that. To some degree, even here in the United States, we still have a tendency to do that. Thinking of leaders as better than, rather than servants. Oh, some of them pay lip service to that concept, but most do not believe that or understand it at all. It is difficult to come to terms with how easy it has been for leaders to usurp that position and lead us down a road that was totally self-destructive. Has to do with especially fossil fuels. And now they're trying to do the same thing with renewables, telling us they can save us because they know better by mining the shit out of the planet to replace fossil fuels and provide us with electricity to run our EVs, and our households will be completely electric, and we will have enough electricity for everybody to go around, and we can still have stadiums lit up so men can throw a ball around and the rich can fly their planes there to watch them. Okay, I'm telling you right now, if you're not studying the full out consequences of industrial civilization, you do not understand what's happening. If you have a superficial knowledge of what is happening as far as not just climate change, because that's a symptom, but if you don't have the full knowledge of overshoot of this planet, then you don't understand. You're not grasping it. And one of the reasons that I've been so adamant about talking about this with people in my personal life, I don't do that as much anymore, but also doing videos like this is because originally I wanted people to vote for people who would do something constructive and not destructive about our situation. I wanted someone who would, be a real leader and take a gamble and take a risk and tell people what the situation really is. But alas, that'll never happen. I really thought Obama was going to be like that. So even in 2012, I voted for him again, and then come to find out, I was very naive that our system has inertia, and it's just going to keep right on going. the way it is. They're going to continue to provide you and me with massive amounts of electricity, and they're going to keep the economic system going, capitalism full bore all the way. As long as people can make a profit, they'll tell you anything. They'll tell you they can make renewables and fix everything. Doesn't matter if they have to mine the seafloor. Doesn't matter if they have to make massive lithium mines and processing centers with it out west and various other places, and go into conflicts in other countries over lithium and cobalt and even uranium, because they're trying to pull the nuclear thing out of the mothballs again. Okay. All right. Let me see if I can read a little more here. Let's begin then with some important questions about our astrological study and practice. Why are you studying astrology? Why are you reading this chapter? What are you looking for? Are you interested in astrology simply because it works? Because it provides a structured system of thought that helps you to feel secure? Because you feel unsure of your ability to cope with life and want to know what to expect from the future? Because you sense your sense of identity is shaky and astrology helps you to define rather than directly experience who you are? So we could say the same thing about climate change or environmental issues in general, like the main one, planetary overshoot. I wonder if I got those yellow glasses for night vision, if the blue would not reflect so much. Anyway, if we say this about why someone would study climate change, especially at this point when we know pretty much nothing out there can be done. It all has to be done in here. That's why you study. That's why you study, because you're learning how to handle the full out situation within your own mind and heart, and how you can help those you love and those in your communities deal with what's coming. Okay, not everybody's going to get completely involved with the full bore of astrological climate change study and overshoot, environmental overshoot. Not everyone's going to be able to do that. But if you can have a good sense of the people around you and you have enough understanding about what's coming, and you feel that you're a caring, compassionate person and or a leader, you can influence those around you, your community, and help in ways that will at least try to make people's lives better, no matter what's going on in the world. We could lose almost everything, but it's the connections between people that matter. Just like in an astrology chart, the connections between the planets, the elements, the modes, put them together, and it helps keep the person whole. You don't take the parts apart and leave them scattered around. You have to tie them together to make the person. So when you're studying climate change, it's not just about studying the pieces of scientific data and information coming in. It's about the fact that it's going to affect our lives personally and our nations. And that is a big deal, because whatever's going on the outside, which is going to be heavy, whatever's going on the outside, you have to have a good center here. Doesn't mean you're never going to be afraid. It doesn't mean that you're never gonna go without. You're gonna go without eventually, especially if you're younger. I'm 65, but it's still going to affect me and at the end of my life here. Not the very end, like it's already kind of affecting. It's so dry here in the Northeast right now that we have to constantly water our garden. I mean, it's just the ground is dust. And we actually, for the first time, I mean, a couple of days back, I threw a couple cups of water on my bushes and flowers outside, but I wasn't watering them. But today I did because it's just horrific. I did notice I have a couple of roses coming out. Partly because I threw a lot of banana peels on it, like starting in the spring. And banana peels, I was told the potassium helps more roses come on your rose bush. So there you go. Now, let's see what else we can come up here with here. Okay. Is it a system that helps you to maintain rationalizations? Ooh, that's a good one. Continue old behaviors, both good and bad, and resist change. Oh, this can so relate to climate change too, right? Between astrology and climate change, that totally fits. We rationalize a lot with climate change, our species. Well, if we just start now, we can save ourselves, or we can save parts of the planet. We can cordon off, parts of the ocean, and do protective measures on land to set aside certain regions so that we don't tear them apart. Well, as long as we're still doing industrial civilization and somebody wants to buy particular products, eventually those protections are going to go away because they're going to want the resources there in order to make your products. They're going to want those resources to make your little kitchen gadgets, the iron ore, the metal, the pieces, just to make a kitchen gadget. And think about how many millions and millions and millions, probably a billion kitchen gadgets get made over a couple of years. It's ridiculous. We don't really need those kitchen gadgets. We really don't. And if you want one, go buy one secondhand. Works pretty good. And you don't need to buy a new one. Okay? Let's see. Do you become dependent upon interpretations you have read or heard for planets, signs, houses, and aspects, or do you become attuned to your own inner guidance and, therefore, more capable of giving to others and experiencing your connectedness to the universe? So when you're learning about climate change, the best thing to do is constantly, if you can, possibly, get outside and sit in nature. Whatever little piece, if you're in the city, find some trees or a little teeny garden or a little teeny park or a big park, something. And daily or almost daily, try to be there and you will get a sense of what it's like. And then over time, you will be able to sense the changes that happen in that green space. You'll get to know the animals that come or don't come, the bees or whatnot. You will be able to find a sense of place. And that's really important. The better you know a place by experience, the more you can experience the changes that come about over time. Oh, excuse me. So, it is important for us to face honestly why we're interested in astrology and how we're using it. Our motivation and approach have a direct impact upon how the planets affect us and how helpful we can be to others. How can we help people to contact and center within themselves, make peace with conflicting energies, learn to cooperate with rather than combat larger energies, become more self-directing or directed by a higher self, if we feel that we are victims of the planets, unable to respond constructively to the energies influencing us. If we feel that we are victims of the planets. Okay, here we make the correlation to feeling like a victim to what? Nature? Or is it the destruction that we have brought by our industrial civilization? Now, we can look at ourselves as victims, but get over that really quick, because, and I'm not going to tell you not to feel like that for a couple of minutes. If you're a parent and you have young kids or any kids, you know that down the road, if you've studied this enough, that they're going to suffer. And it just feels so unfair. We're not just talking about bad economics in the future or anything. We're not just talking about that. No. As you might have heard, the new wars won't be over oil. They'll be over water. Now that's a really scary thing. So don't hang on to the victim sense. Get to a point where you can let it go. You're going to grieve. And here we go. Learn the 5 stages of grief. And as you learn more and more about this, I hate to call it an issue, predicament that we're in, you will go through those stages. But the thing is, you may get past one stage, but later you bounce back to the same stage. It's not a complete forward process all the time. You can go back and forth. I still go back to anger sometimes, where I'm extremely angry about how the fossil fuel industry knew from the 70s and 80s, absolutely, that burning fossil fuels was causing climate change and what it would do. And they continued to put out propaganda that there was no climate change. Oh, but then later, well, there is, but it's not human caused. And now they keep promising hydrogen energy. They keep promising green fuel for jets. Yeah, okay. I've read articles on that. It's not a real thing. Trust me. Look up and read about these things that they promise. They're not freaking real. The thing is, too, tweaking a little bit around the edges to make a fuel a little bit less CO2 producing isn't going to do shit. We are way, way past that. Okay. Astrology and our life purpose. Now, this is a biggie because I know many people have come to ask in their lifetimes, what is the purpose of humans? I mean, many other animals, we've learned through school and such that different animals have different purposes within the web of life. Just by their natural behavior, they create situations that are positive in the way that ecosystems work and that habitat works, etc. But what about humans? Well, to me, I think we went past our purpose thousands and thousands of years ago, maybe million, I don't know. Because we have been around in different forms. Humans have been around in different forms. But, when we learn to use fire, when we learn to make weapons, I mean, this is all, we learned to use fire 1,000,000 years ago. Yeah. You have to look up prehistory and start learning about, hunter-gatherers. That's not somebody living in the 1700s that had to go out and hunt a deer. That's not hunter-gatherers, okay? Hunter-gatherers were before we ever started agriculture, okay? And we started agriculture approximately 8,000 years ago. And the only reason we were able to do that was because the Holocene climate began around 10,000 years ago. Now, okay, let me read a little more. Astrology and our life purpose. Increasing our knowledge of astrology is a viable aim, but not without considering a more important aim. improving the quality of our lives and the lives of others. Astrology is meaningful primarily to the extent that it furthers our development and enables us to live more peacefully with ourselves and our environment. Astrology serves its purpose when it helps us to unify and to integrate our conflicting parts so that we can turn our attention to important tasks. Okay, so my thing has been, the more people understand what we're doing to our environment, to the planet, and that our way of life was not the right path, and that it's very destructive. Once you understand that, you get past the victimization you feel. And then you say, well, again, how am I going to make those people's lives around me better? By having the correct attitude. Okay. Having a more, and when I say positive, I don't mean, oh, wow, humans are great. We can do this, we can make that. No. It's about the right attitude during the course of a day. You wake up with as much of a smile as you can. You do something for somebody. You provide an atmosphere that creates unity. And that is really hard these days, right? But as people begin to grasp our predicament, more and more people will be shocked, afraid, petrified, confused, and anybody who has the ability to step outside of everything, as astrologers do, you are the one who can work to provide that objective, positive attitude for people to be able to work from day to day. It's a day-to-day thing. Let's go out and weed our garden today. Let's, put in some new plants, hopefully heirloom seeds. Let's not mow our lawn. Let's put some beautiful wildflowers there. Let's put in some nice bushes and create little paths, and we don't have to worry about mowing. Even if we just get a motorless lawnmower for little patches, it's better than getting on some great big riding lawnmower or even a push mower with a motor and having to use fossil fuels to do this huge lawn that doesn't serve any real purpose, So little things like that. It's not going to stop climate change. It's not going to stop the collapse of industrial civilization. It's not going to stop the biosphere breakdown. But in your little patch, it could divert negativity developing among the people you know, negativity developing in your community. It could help bring cohesiveness within the realms that you have around you. And then find ways for different people within your community to work together to provide for everyone. Because it's going to get like that everyone's going to need to depend on each other. So let me keep going here. Life today is specialized, fragmented, and complicated. When faith in God or in cosmologies related to a higher force dissolve, we lose touch not only with a unifying center outside ourselves, but also with a unifying center within. We substitute unrelated goals, interests, or impulses to fill the vacuum. We may look to work, partner, family, or studies to provide meaning that we can't provide for ourselves. And my kitty decided to join us. You want to come down here, sweetie? Come on. Come down here. Come sit on Mommy's lap. Come on. You're in the way. Where are you going? Why don't you get down here?